The morning rush in Cape Town buzzed with the usual intensity. Taxi horns blaring, vendors shouting offers, pedestrians weaving through the chaos with practiced ease. But inside a sleek silver Range Rover, Victor Langston sat in a bubble of quiet. His driver, Sifo, maneuvered through the clogged intersection near Greenmarket Square. Victor scrolled absent-mindedly through his emails, dressed in a tailored navy blue suit, a gold watch peeking from his cuff. From the outside, he was the picture of success, an entrepreneur, investor, the type of man you'd see in magazines or on panels speaking about vision and grit. But none of that prepared him for what he saw next. The SUV dipped slightly into a pothole, causing Victor to glance up. What caught his eye wasn't the road, though. It was a woman, curled up beside a public trash bin, her back against a graffitied wall, her arms wrapped tightly around two small boys. Their clothes were torn. One boy had no shoes. The other had a crusted wound on his knee. The mother's head hung low, her hair tangled and lifeless. There was something in the way she held her sons, desperately, protectively, that struck Victor like a punch to the chest. He narrowed his eyes. No way. It couldn't be. But the closer they drove, the more his heart raced. He sat forward, squinting past the tinted glass, her profile, her hands, that faint scar above her eyebrow. It all came rushing back like a ghost from another life. "Sir?" Sifo said, glancing in the mirror. Victor didn't blink. "Pull over." The SUV slowed and came to a halt just ahead of the woman. Victor stepped out, the door shutting behind him with a quiet thud. The chill of the sea breeze brushed against his face, but he barely felt it. His polished shoes tapped against the pavement as he approached. Each step took him closer to a memory he thought he'd buried. He stopped a few feet away and spoke, his voice trembling despite his calm tone. "Zara?" The woman flinched and looked up. Her face, though worn by hardship, was unmistakable. The same Zara from university. The girl who once walked through life like she was untouchable, surrounded by admirers, never noticing quiet boys in the back row like him. Her lips parted, cracked and dry. "Victor?" she said, her voice a brittle whisper. Silence wrapped around them as the city faded into the background. The boys huddled tighter against her, frightened by the stranger. Victor's chest tightened. He wanted to speak, but nothing came out. Not yet. He was staring at a woman who once ruled the room with her smile, now a shadow, clinging to two children with nowhere to go. He knelt slightly, leveling his gaze. "What happened to you, Zara?" She looked down, shame burning her cheeks. "Please," she murmured, "just walk away." But Victor couldn't. Not now. Not ever again. Zara tightened her grip on her sons as if shielding them from more than just the cold breeze. Her arms formed a protective cage around their fragile bodies, as if she could keep the world and Victor out. Victor took a cautious step forward, his hands raised gently. "Zara, it's me. You don't have to be afraid." But fear had long since settled in her bones. She looked up again, and for a brief second, he saw her eyes, once fiery with ambition, now dimmed with exhaustion and grief. "I said go," she muttered, voice low, almost cracked. "I don't need you to see me like this." Victor crouched, not touching her, but close enough to feel the weight she carried. His eyes drifted to the boys, who looked back at him with curiosity and caution. One clutched his mother's frayed sweater, while the other rested his head on her thigh, eyelids heavy with fatigue. "You're cold," Victor said softly. "They're hungry. Let me help." She snapped her head up, anger flickering for a moment. "Help? What do you think this is? A redemption movie? You swoop in, save the poor girl, and feel like a hero?" Victor didn't flinch. He nodded slowly. "If that's what it takes to get you and your sons fed, sure." Zara looked away, jaw clenched. She was used to pity. She'd seen it in the eyes of strangers who offered coins. She hated it. But this was different. Victor wasn't offering charity. He was offering presence. Real, steady, uncomfortable presence. One of the boys let out a soft whimper and clutched his stomach. That sound, weak, barely there, shattered what remained of Zara's resistance. She closed her eyes. "I swore I'd never take help from anyone again." Victor stayed quiet. He didn't push. He just waited. Zara's body sagged under the weight of decision. "Just for tonight," she whispered, defeated. "Just enough to feed them and let them sleep." Victor nodded. "That's all I ask." He stood and offered a hand. She stared at it, hesitant. Then slowly she reached out and took it, rough fingers meeting his smooth palm. The touch was brief, but it said everything. She was still proud, still guarded, but she was also a mother, and mothers break every rule when their children are suffering. Victor led them to the car. Sifo opened the back door, casting a curious glance, but said nothing. Zara and the boys climbed in. The warmth of the leather seats wrapped around them like a forgotten comfort. Victor looked ahead. "Take us home," he told the driver. As the car pulled away from the broken sidewalk and into the heart of the city, Zara stared out the window, her sons curled against her. Her world had fallen apart long ago. But maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something new. The silence in the car was deep, so deep it swallowed the hum of traffic and the distant street chatter. Zara sat stiffly, her arms around her children like a human seatbelt. Her eyes were blank, staring through the tinted glass as the streets of Cape Town blurred past. Victor sat beside her but didn't speak. He sensed her tension. He knew words wouldn't fix anything, at least not yet. They pulled into a gated estate on the slopes of Signal Hill, where glass-walled homes overlooked the city. The guard waved them in after recognizing Victor's car. Zara tensed. The house came into view, modern, clean, warm lights glowing through the tall windows. The kind of home she used to dream of. Now it felt alien. Victor stepped out first, then gently opened the door on her side. Zara hesitated. Her sons looked up at her, eyes wide, their faces lit by the golden lights of the mansion. They looked so small, so out of place, just like her. "You're safe here," Victor said softly. Zara took a breath, then another. She stepped out, holding her son's hands tightly. Inside, the scent of something rich and spicy floated through the air. A cheerful woman in an apron appeared from the kitchen. "Dinner's almost ready, sir," she said, then noticed the guests. "Oh, hello there," she smiled warmly at Zara and the boys. Zara stiffened, instinctively stepping in front of her kids. The cook's eyes softened with understanding. Victor leaned toward her. "I asked Chef Nalwazi to make something special. You've had enough scraps. Tonight, you eat like family." Zara said nothing. She was too overwhelmed. They were led to a large, simple dining table. Bowls of spaghetti bolognese, warm garlic bread, and creamy pumpkin soup steamed before them. A pitcher of juice sparkled in the center. The twins didn't wait. As soon as they were seated, they dug in, first cautiously, then like they hadn't eaten in days, which they hadn't. Zara just stared at her plate. Victor sat across from her, watching quietly. "Aren't you going to eat?" She picked up her fork slowly, her hand trembling. The first bite stopped her cold. The warmth, the flavor, the memory of what a meal used to feel like. Suddenly, her lips quivered. Her hand flew to her mouth, and a tear slipped down her cheek. Victor didn't comment. He just poured her a glass of water and placed it gently by her plate. "Take your time," he said softly. She nodded, too emotional to speak. One of the twins looked up with sauce smeared across his cheek. "Mommy, this is the best food ever." Zara smiled weakly, brushing his hair back. "I know, my love, I know." And in that moment, wrapped in warmth, full plates, and gentle silence, Zara allowed herself, for the first time in years, to breathe. Not fully, but enough to remember what hope tasted like. The house had quieted. The twins were upstairs in the guest room, asleep beneath soft blankets they hadn't stopped giggling about. The night breeze whispered through the balcony windows, and a golden lamp cast a warm glow across the living room. Zara sat on the edge of the couch, her posture stiff. Her fingers played nervously with the frayed hem of her sleeve. Victor sat across from her in an armchair, one ankle resting casually over his knee, but his eyes were anything but relaxed. He watched her with quiet intent, like a man who had waited years for this moment. "You don't have to tell me anything," he said gently. Zara exhaled through her nose. "No," she said, her voice tired but steady. "You deserve to know. You didn't walk away. That means something." Victor nodded. He didn't interrupt. She looked down at her hands. "His name was Caleb," she began, "the boy's father. When I met him, I thought he was the answer to everything I wanted. Tall, smooth. He talked like the future belonged to him, and he made me believe it could belong to me too." Victor listened quietly, his expression unreadable. "We made plans. He said we'd travel, start a business, build a life together. I was naive. I didn't know then that words were cheap." She swallowed, her voice thickening. "When I told him I was pregnant, he said all the right things at first, but I saw it, the fear, the way his eyes darted. A few weeks later, he started disappearing, ghosting my calls. One morning, I woke up and he was gone. Completely. Victor's jaw clenched. I went to his place. It was empty, like he never existed. And just like that, I became invisible to the man I gave everything to. Zara's voice broke slightly. She blinked hard. My parents didn't take it well. My father said I had dishonored the family. He told me to leave. My mother cried, but she didn't stop him. I left with a small bag and a growing belly. She looked up, eyes brimming. I begged for jobs. I cleaned salons, waited tables. Some nights I slept outside clinics with the boys wrapped in my shawl, praying they wouldn't get sick. I used to be someone, Victor. Now I don't even recognize my own face in the mirror. Victor's throat tightened. You're still someone, he said. She gave a bitter smile. To you, maybe, but to the world, I'm just another broken story. Victor stood slowly and walked over, sitting beside her. To me, you're a mother who never gave up, a woman who faced hell and didn't run. Tears welled again, but this time she didn't hide them. Victor placed his hand near hers, close, but not touching. You're not alone anymore, Zara. Not tonight, not ever again, if you'll let me stay. She turned to him, her breath shaking. Why do you care so much? Victor's voice was low, steady. Because back then, when I sat 2 rows behind you in that economics class, I saw someone who believed in herself, and tonight I saw her again. Zara looked away, overwhelmed. For the first time in years, someone saw her. Not her scars, not her shame, but her. And it scared her more than the hunger ever had. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the long windows, painting golden lines across the living room floor. Zara stood barefoot in the hallway, still wearing the oversized shirt Victor had offered her to sleep in. It hung loosely on her frame, but it was clean, warm, safe. She hadn't felt safe in years. The twins were already laughing in the kitchen, seated at the counter eating cereal and toast. Chef Nolwazi hummed a soft hymn as she moved around the stove, flipping pancakes. Zara lingered in the doorway, unsure whether she belonged in this softness. Victor stepped beside her, holding 2 mugs of tea. You slept? She nodded slowly. A little, better than I have in a long time. He handed her a mug, careful not to crowd her space. I've been thinking, he said gently. Come to the office with me today. Zara blinked. To your company? Victor nodded. I need help organizing some files, sorting records. It's simple stuff, but it'll give you a little structure and a salary. Zara stiffened. I haven't worked in years, Victor. I don't even know if I remember how to hold a mouse. He smiled softly. That's what training is for. She hesitated. What if I mess it up? Then you mess it up, he replied, and try again. Zara's fingers tightened around her mug. I don't want to be your charity case. Victor's smile faded, replaced by quiet seriousness. You're not. This isn't about pity, Zara. It's about rebuilding, starting again, with dignity. Her eyes dropped to the floor. The offer was too generous, too easy, and she didn't trust anything easy anymore. But then she looked at the twins, eating, laughing, alive. She had to start somewhere. Later that day, she stood at the entrance of Langston & Co., staring up at the tall glass doors. Her heart pounded. Her palms were slick. Victor appeared beside her. You can do this. She took a deep breath. Okay, I'll try. Inside, she was introduced to a few polite staff. Some smiled, others stared. A few whispered when they thought she couldn't hear. It didn't matter. She'd endured worse than gossip. Victor led her to a desk near the back. This is your station. Zara looked down at the monitor, the keyboard, the paperwork waiting in neat stacks. Everything inside her wanted to run. But she sat, because for the first time in a long time, she had a reason not to. Days passed, then weeks, and slowly, without even realizing it, Zara began to reclaim herself. The first few mornings at the office were hard. Every beep of the printer startled her. Every mistake on a spreadsheet made her want to cry, and every whisper she overheard felt like a spotlight on her past. But she kept showing up. Victor had placed her under the mentorship of a calm, older woman named Auntie Neliswa, a quiet powerhouse who taught her how to use systems, manage records, and navigate the chaos of office life with grace. You learn fast, Neliswa told her one afternoon, handing her a highlighter. Don't let the past convince you you're less than capable. Zara nodded, biting her lip to stop from tearing up. Meanwhile, the twins, Kazi and Bo, were thriving. Victor had enrolled them in a nearby school. They now wore uniforms, carried backpacks, and came home excited about lessons on planets and drawing. Each night, they shared stories from their day over dinner, sometimes fighting over who got to sit beside Victor. They had stopped calling him Mr. Victor. Now they called him Uncle V. And Zara, she began to notice the way Victor looked at them, with pride, with love, the way he gently reminded them to say their prayers, the way he always waited for Zara before starting his own meal, the way he didn't just say he cared, he showed it in every act, every silence, every safe space he created. One rainy evening, as thunder rolled over the city, Zara stood at the kitchen window, drying dishes while watching the twins wrestle with Victor on the living room rug. She smiled, not a forced smile, a real one, soft, healing. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. It was Neliswa, stopping by to drop off a few papers. As she stepped inside and saw Victor playing with the kids, she turned to Zara with a knowing look. "He's not just helping you," she said quietly. "He's rooting for you." Zara's eyes dropped. "I know." Later that night, as the boys snored softly upstairs, Zara and Victor sat on the patio. The city lights flickered in the distance. A gentle wind brushed across the quiet. "Thank you," she said, staring into her tea. "For what?" he asked. "For seeing something in me when I saw nothing." Victor looked at her, not the woman she had been, but the one she was becoming. "I didn't see something," he said. "I saw you." Zara's throat tightened, and for the first time in years, the future didn't seem like a threat. It felt like a promise. It was a Thursday, the kind of calm day that didn't hint at anything going wrong. Zara was in the office, sorting through client invoices. The twins were at school, and Victor had a board meeting scheduled for later that afternoon. She had just finished filing a report when the receptionist's voice crackled through the intercom. Mr. Langston, there's a man here asking for you. He's not on the schedule." Victor pressed the response button. "What's his name?" The receptionist hesitated. "He says his name is Caleb. Says he's the father of Ms. Zara's children." Victor froze. He stood slowly, heart thudding against his ribs. "Send him up." Zara didn't hear the conversation. She was still at her desk when a voice from the past sliced through the air like a knife. "Zara." She turned, and her whole world tilted. Caleb stood in the hallway. Same smooth voice, same arrogant posture, but thinner, edgier, as if life hadn't gone quite as planned. Zara rose to her feet, her hands trembling. "What are you doing here?" He took a step forward. "I heard things, that you're living in some rich guy's house, that he's caring for my children." Zara's spine stiffened. "They're not yours. You lost the right to call them that the day you left." Caleb scoffed. "They carry my blood. And what did that blood ever do for them?" Victor's voice was suddenly behind her. Caleb turned, surprised. Victor stepped between them calmly but firmly. "You barge into my office uninvited, and now you want to play Father of the Year?" Caleb squared his shoulders. "I have a right to see them." Victor's expression didn't flinch. "Name one of your sons." Caleb hesitated. Zara let out a bitter laugh. "You don't even know their names." Caleb's jaw tightened. "I made mistakes, I know that, but they're still my kids." "No," Zara snapped, stepping beside Victor. "They're my kids. I raised them. I fed them. I comforted them when they cried out for a father who never came. You don't get to walk back in and pretend." The office had gone quiet. A few staff stood frozen in the hallway. Caleb's face twisted, anger building behind his eyes. "You think this man cares about you? You think he's doing this out of love? He just wants to feel better about himself." Victor's tone dropped, calm, deadly. "You're projecting, because deep down, you know you gave up the one thing worth fighting for." Caleb's mouth opened, but Zara stepped forward. "Leave, Caleb. This is not your home. This is not your family. You made that choice a long time ago." And then finally, Caleb saw it. Not just the resolve in her voice, but the peace in her face. She wasn't broken anymore. He had no power left. He looked at Victor, then Zara, then turned and walked away. No parting words, no remorse, just silence and shame. The door clicked shut behind him. Zara collapsed into a chair, breathing heavily. Victor knelt beside her. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "For the first time in a long time, I think I am." Outside, the city kept moving, but inside that office, a chapter had closed, and something better was ready to begin. The days after Caleb's visit passed like the quiet after a storm. Zara felt different, lighter. It wasn't that the pain had disappeared, but the grip it held over her was finally broken. She had faced the man who abandoned her, not with fear, not with begging, but with strength she didn't know she had. And Victor had stood beside her, not in front of her, not for her, but with her. That changed everything. One evening, just after the twins had gone to bed, Zara stepped out onto the balcony. Cape Town's skyline shimmered below, the sea catching moonlight like a mirror. Victor stood near the railing, sipping tea, lost in thought. She joined him quietly. He glanced sideways, then smiled. "How are you holding up?" Zara exhaled. "Strangely calm. I keep waiting for the chaos to return, but it hasn't." Victor nodded. "That's what healing feels like at first, like silence after years of noise." She looked up at him, searching his face. "Why did you do all this, Victor? Why me?" He was quiet for a moment. Then he set down his cup. "I've loved you for a long time," he said simply, "since before you knew my name." Zara blinked. "But I don't want you to love me because I helped you, or because I gave you shelter. I want you to choose me, for who I am, just as I've chosen you, for who you are, not what you've been through." Her breath caught. She looked away, overwhelmed. "I don't know if I can love again," she admitted. "I gave everything to someone once, and it nearly destroyed me." Victor stepped closer, but not too close. "I can't promise you perfection," he said softly, "but I can promise this. I'll never walk away. Not from you, not from the boys. I'll fight for you, every day." Zara felt her heart stutter. Emotions tangled inside her. Fear, hope, longing. "I don't want to make another mistake," she whispered. Victor reached out and gently took her hand. "Then don't decide now. Just stay, heal, and when you're ready, I'll still be here." She looked into his eyes. There was no pressure, no demand, just love, waiting. And for the first time in years, Zara let her hand stay in someone else's, not in desperation, but in trust. Weeks passed like petals falling from a tree, quietly, beautifully. Zara grew stronger. She no longer flinched when her name was called at the office. She no longer hesitated when the boys ran ahead on the school sidewalk. Her shoulders stood straighter, her voice more certain. And Victor, he never changed. He was there when she needed silence, there when she needed laughter. Never rushing her, never retreating. He stayed. One golden afternoon, Zara watched from the window as the twins chased each other through the yard. Victor knelt in the grass, helping them build a kite with leftover paper and string. Their laughter danced up into the sky like music. Zara smiled. This peace was something she never believed she'd feel again. That night, after the twins had drifted to sleep, Zara walked onto the balcony. Victor was already there, his gaze resting on the moonlit skyline. She touched his shoulder. He turned, surprised, then softened. She didn't speak right away. Instead, she placed her palm on his chest, right over his heart. "I see it now," she said. "Who you are, what you've done, not just for me, but for them." Victor's throat tightened, but he stayed still. "I've been afraid," Zara whispered, "afraid to trust, to fall, to believe again." He gently took her hand. "I know, but I'm not afraid anymore." She looked into his eyes. "Victor Langston, I love you." He didn't smile, not at first. Instead, his eyes filled with quiet awe, like a prayer had just been answered. "Are you sure?" he asked, voice low. Zara nodded. "Yes, with everything I am." Victor reached into his pocket and knelt on one knee. Not dramatically, not with a speech rehearsed 1,000 times, just a man, steady and full of love, holding a simple ring. "Zara Ndlovu," he said, "will you marry me, not because of what we've been through, but because of what we could build together?" Tears welled in her eyes. She nodded before she could even speak. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Victor." He rose, slipping the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, like the moment had been waiting for them all along. They held each other under the stars, hearts beating in sync. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better. It was real. The wedding wasn't flashy. It didn't need to be. It was held beneath a giant marula tree in the village where Zara was born, white fabric draped between its branches. Drums echoed softly in the distance, and guests gathered, some curious, others teary-eyed. Zara stood beside Victor in a flowing, hand-beaded gown, her hair braided back, her face radiant with something deeper than beauty: peace. The twins, dressed in tiny suits with matching ties, danced barefoot across the field with wild joy. Victor's hand found hers, and when the officiant asked, "Do you choose this man?" she answered not just with her voice, but with her soul, "I do." But before the vows were sealed, Victor turned toward Zara's father, who stood at the edge of the gathering, his shoulders stooped by time and regret. Zara had resisted the idea of going back. "They threw me out," she had told Victor once. "Why should I offer anything more?" And Victor had answered, "Because forgiveness isn't for them. It's for you, for your future." So here they were. Victor stepped forward. "Sir," he said respectfully, "I ask for your blessing, not because I need it to love your daughter, but because I want to rebuild what was broken, for her and for these boys who now call me Dad." The old man looked at his daughter. Zara didn't move. Tears brimmed in her father's eyes. "I was wrong," he whispered. "I was scared of shame, but I only created more of it by turning my back on my own blood." He looked at the twins. "These boys, they are my grandsons, and I have never met braver souls." He turned to Victor. "You have my blessing, son." And to Zara, voice shaking, "Can you ever forgive me?" Zara stepped forward. She didn't answer with words. She embraced him, in front of everyone. And in that moment, the weight she had carried for so long finally dropped. Later, as night fell and fires were lit, the village danced. Plates of jollof rice, grilled chicken, and soft music filled the air. Children ran barefoot, women laughed freely, and in the center of it all, Zara and Victor held each other close, swaying slowly. It wasn't perfect, but it was sacred. Weeks turned to months. Zara and Victor returned to Cape Town, now as husband and wife. The twins adjusted quickly, their giggles echoing in every corner of the home. Zara returned to work, now with confidence, not because she had everything figured out, but because she finally believed she belonged. Victor remained the same, steady, loving, patient. One night, as he tucked the boys into bed and turned off the light, he joined Zara in the hallway. "Are you happy?" he asked, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. She leaned into him. "More than I ever dreamed I could be." And as they stood there in the quiet, hands entwined, Zara knew. She was no longer the woman broken on a street corner. She was a mother, a wife, a survivor, and most of all, she was loved. Because sometimes the greatest miracles aren't loud or flashy, they're soft, steady, and they come when you least expect them, but need them most. Life doesn't always follow the map we draw. Sometimes it leads us through heartbreak, abandonment, and the kind of silence that makes us question our worth. But even in the darkest chapters, light finds a way in. Zara's story reminds us of one simple truth: you don't have to face everything alone. Help may not come how or when you expect it, but it comes. And when it does, healing begins. This story is not about perfection. It's about courage. It's about letting love in again after being shattered. It's about forgiving, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Most importantly, this story shows us that true love doesn't come to rescue you. It comes to walk beside you. Strength isn't about enduring pain in silence. It's about rising when someone offers a hand. And second chances? They're real, but only if you're brave enough to take them. What did this story speak to in your heart? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your reflections and experiences. Drop your thoughts below. Don't forget to hit that like button if this touched you. And if you haven't yet, subscribe and turn on the notification bell. A brand new, soul-stirring story is coming your way in just a few days. Thank you for watching. Thank you for believing in love, hope, and second chances. See you in the next one.